yellowish shirt,
Okay.
and a very bald head.
Okay.
I got a couple of hairs left. And
You're just
are
going to
you
start
going to put
talking
the
to me?
graphic up? They can't put the graphic up, Joseanne? Or can you? I don't know. Okay. Appreciate your patience, honey.
That's okay.
I'm just
What are you
waiting
going
for
to
them
talk
to
to me
give the
about
signal.
first?
And that whole thing, did you get word about that?
Daddy?
There we go. Listen, are you talking to me from the booth? Hello? Hello, hello? Hello, Dolly. Well, hello, Dolly. Hello from the booth. Are we up and running or what? Are we going? I can't. Start when? Now? Now? Well, okay, I don't understand. We didn't get very... Okay, welcome very, very much to Conversations. It's a great personal honor and privilege for me to present, as you can see over my left shoulder, a very lovely presence coming to us from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and that's nobody else but Lisa Channer, my darling, dearly daughter. And Lisa, so good to welcome you to Conversations. And we now have your thing up, Associate Professor, Head of BA. What's BA? Theater Performance, University of Minnesota. What's BA? Bachelor?
Bachelor of Arts?
Oh, Bachelor of Arts, of course, theater. Congratulations on being involved with the theater performance at the University of Minnesota. I understand Minneapolis is a happening town.
Yeah, it is. It's quite happening. And the university is big, and we have a pretty wonderful theater, arts, and dance program here that I'm really happy to be a part of. So
Oh, well,
thanks
wonderful.
for having me.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. We want to talk, and this is being, we're taping now, just for the audience, we're taping, having done a program with a gentleman who had been the creator, director, and choreographer for a Broadway show that I really enjoyed very much. It was really good. You'll be getting evidence of that. Talking about theater and the role of theater and how important it is, because, like, for instance, in Conversations, I'm mostly talking about things, dull things like economics and politics and information technology and all that sort of thing, Buckminster Fuller and all that. But theater and the arts is what we want to talk about today, how important it is. And we had quite a philosophical talk with him about the importance and the tendency for the arts are going to become more and more significant to the well-led life than they have been, I think, coming out of history. I think there's a great future for the arts in terms of engaging human activity and human thought in the time ahead, don't you?
I think there always has been, and probably, we're probably approaching a time where it's even more important.
No, I think definitely it is.
Yeah.
It's more important than it was at the time of the cave, I guess. We had people talking about bears and things.
Oh, no, maybe.
Yeah, maybe it's hard.
I think it's always been important, actually. I think the arts are what keep us human. And
yeah.
But now, especially in a time when we know everything that's going on every second of every minute, you can be tuned in to the whole world.
Yeah.
You can be connected, but that loses a little bit of that immediate 360-degree human connection that the theater experience gives you. So
yeah.
I think the world can seem a troubling place. And
the world can see what, I'm sorry?
Well, it can seem a very troubling place.
Oh, a troubling place. Yeah, okay.
If you know everything that's going on 24 hours a day because of the internet, and we have high-powered computers in our back pockets. And
yeah, I know.
I think theater is kind of the only, art and theater are the antidote to that kind of overwhelmingness of the digital age. And I think it helps keep us rooted and grounded because it's very visceral, it's very physical, and it's very immediate. So
wow.
Actually, I do think as we enter a more cyberly connected world, I guess, the realness of theater becomes something people crave.
Yeah, and the appropriateness of it being there and everything like that is probably the case. There's so much going on so quickly, and it's changing so so rapidly. Theater. There was a time when there was only theater, I think, although there's always been poets and so forth. But there was a time when it was at the time of Mr. Shakespeare. There wasn't many. There was no movies. There was no radio. There was no other way. You could have it. The theater would be a place for poetic expression, which is what we had, and a chance to really elaborate a little bit on that. But theater had a unique role in terms of something representing in the physical space that people lived in the artistic expression. It seems to me, right?
Is that a question or a statement?
No, it's sort of a question in both. It's both.
Okay.
I think that's the case. Goes back to Athenian times, or when does it go back? The idea of what we call theater as part of the human expression that is in the historical books and solid and part of the record. Was it in Neanderthal caves? Can we go to, or how far back can we go that this thing called theater or expression or the arts would be able to be identified, or how do we deal with all that?
There's a lot of ways to think about it. When I teach my students, I always read them this wonderful quote from the book, The Dramatic Imagination by Robert Edmund Jones. And he sort of asks us to imagine back to the time of early humans. And that sort of to imagine that we're all sitting around the fire at the end of a day.
Right.
And that day there was a hunt.
Hello. Looks like we've had a little glitch, huh? Have we had a glitch, or can it be corrected? Can we call
Hands up
okay.
and decides to tell the story of the hunt and how they did it.
Yeah.
But in the middle of it, he says, wait a minute, I'm not just going to tell you about it, I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
And he puts on the tiger skin.
Yeah. Yeah,
and he acts out the killing of the tiger, and the people around the fire feel like magically he became the tiger. And so he wasn't just telling the story, he was showing it to us and living it, and it was kind of magical. And Robert Edmund Jones in that description is sort of imagining that that's the first actor. So probably there have been always bringing inanimate objects to life through puppets and figures. The early cave paintings were very dramatic. So I think probably with the whole Precambrian explosion, we started art. You know, it's something that makes us uniquely human, is our need to express ourselves that way. And then as you go through history, it changes. The meaning of it changes. The Greeks kind of started what we think of as Western drama. With the Festival of Dionysus, which was, 250,000 years ago, or 2,500 years ago. But it was our start of a certain kind of drama called tragedy and comedy. And then during various epochs of human development, theater has been a place for you. If you can tell something in metaphor, you can kind of test out a social idea. It's safer. You can try out what would it be like if we lived the way these people are living on stage. And you can defy the censors. In the Soviet Union, it was the one place you could go to hear the truth. It was kind of veiled truth, but you could count on the theater telling the truth. So I think theater changes. What's needed changes. And how that theater is going to be useful for a society changes. But what I do think is it gets diminished when we think of it only as entertainment. And I think that has happened sometimes, when theater is getting at something that's a little bit too real or a little bit too political or dangerous, it often is the time when it gets censored. And then you see periods where theater is just something really that is entertaining on a kind of bourgeois level. But theater's wider than that. It's had a huge array of reasons for being. I guess it depends where you are and when you are. And every culture and every moment in time and every generation is trying to figure out what that means for them. What is the theater for them now? Yeah.
That's all very interesting. I don't know that it's limited to theater only. That could be writ large for the human condition. It seems to me because the process of transformation has been part of the evolutionary process, and the transformation is heralding a qualitative transformation from what has been. And when a qualitative condition changes fundamentally, it threatens the traditional way that has been the case up until then, just say evolutionarily. And so that would be threatening to the means by which the entity or whatever would have gotten their own sense of identity. And 99.999% of all the species that have ever existed have gone extinct. So there's been a lot of change going on, and that process of change and up the evolutionary ladder is something that isn't just theater, it's a process of confronting a conflict within a period of qualitative change. And it may be that we're going through that kind of a time now. The program we just did that I'd mentioned to you with this fellow here, it's called The Trip of Life. It's celebrating the moment of the Woodstock moment, the 1960s in music, and as a musical vehicle and everything like that. And he was seeing that as a moment of qualitative transformation, perhaps. It can be read that way. That was not just sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It was being something felt intuitively of a qualitative transformation in the whole evolutionary process of humanity. And we may be going through that, and that's an ultimate kind of transformation that is causing a great deal of angst now. Today is the day of the final day of the vetting process for the presidency of the United States of America, and it's all being qualitatively transformed. I just said to you off camera, we'd been at an event last night with Miss what's her name from California?
Nancy Pelosi.
Nancy Pelosi. Really, together, she gave a talk where I was, and she said that that this was a time of there was a lot. Well, actually, she said she thought Trump was a gift that kept giving, because it's like Saturday Night Live every day on television with some sort of thing that is outrageous seeming, but is signaling an end. And then this program we did is that we may be coming to a time of qualitative transformation. So the thing you're talking about, theater being able to do that, but it's one way of having expression, and then it has to be camouflaged often, like you said. It can't be said directly because the implications are so monumental to a qualitative change that it can't be come right out and talked. It has to be spoken of in metaphor or in other kinds of ways, because it's too upsetting to the means by which people get or an entity gets a sense of identity. I think we may be going through that kind of a process now, and theater is theater and the arts are a leading way for addressing those periods of qualitative transformation that we may be living in a major kind of way. I'm not sure, but that's something that I'm thinking about with theater. And I think it must be wonderful to be engaged in theater like you are. You were always interested in theater. I remember when you were a little tyke, dancing up on the stage when you were about 5 years old, and guess what? Everybody would applaud because you were such a star, and every little 5-year-old is such a star. And it's such a wonderful thing for the kids and everything like that. And I remember when you were doing that, and you were always interested in theater, even back in New Paltz, weren't you? Were you more academically engaged for a while, or you were always engaged with the theater? It seems to me. Or showing off. You were always showing off, I think, right? I'm not sure if that's the case. You can tell. You can share with me here and the family. You as a budding thespian.
Do you want to hear me now?
I'm asking. It's personal, but it's also indicative of every 5-year-old that's come along, probably.
The first play that I really saw, that I remember seeing, was I was probably 9 years old, and my mother, the wonderful Eileen, she was working in the office of the Fine and Performing Arts Dean.
At New Paltz University.
Right. And so she had access to she would go see she was a part of the theater and arts and dance programs there. So she took me to see in a small theater over on campus a production of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You know, that crazy play about
Lunatic asylum.
yeah, pretty much, but
Yeah.
about really who's crazy, society or the people inside that are trapped.
Right.
But anyway, it was a student, you know, performed production of a very intense story, and it turns out actually John Turturro, who is now a very well-known actor in films, he was a student then, and he was playing the Indian. And so I got to sit in the very close front row and watch that, and I really remember that very clearly, and how, and I sort of realized that here was a magical place where really intense ideas and feelings could be expressed, and I could engage in those feelings and think about them even if I didn't understand them all.
Yeah.
And I liked this world where you could go to these deeper places.
Yeah.
So, you know, I was drawn in right then, and then I was involved with a lot of dance as well as a kid, and that was another way
the
in.
Vanderveer Caravan, remember the Vanderveer? They're still kicking it, I think, aren't they?
They are very kicking it.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been working with them as a director the last few years, and having a great time. Yeah.
Also humor. We were always surrounded by people who were really, really smart and very, very sensitive to the muse and everything. And usually that comes with people who have a very well-honed and very to be appreciated sense of humor. Seems to me we always had people around who were really, really funny. And that helps, I think, don't you? It's got a place in terms, that's theatrical.
My mother had also, because her connection to the university, she was able to take us to every show. And whenever there was a film, a foreign film or a musical, you know, she would take David, my brother, and I to see all this stuff that not all kids had access to, I think.
True.
You know?
Yeah.
So I was very fortunate in that way, I guess, in that I kind of got the message early on that the arts were a really important and central part of living, and I could be engaged in them.
And
she also made it possible for us to train by starting that arts community, a nonprofit organization, so that professionals could teach children in the community.
Yeah.
So we were lucky enough also to be involved in that, which meant I was in the theater youth group, I was in the dance work, and you know, I was fortunate. But the truth is, I think all children do well. They are natural storytellers, and they're natural mimics, and they're natural creative beings. And when you give them the opportunity, they are actually pretty amazing to work with. So
well, my favorite human beings, I think, remain 5-year-olds. 5-year-olds are just totally honest. They have no artifice at all, and they're just absolute. You know, just magnificent. I think we'd do better if we could keep that. But we always had funny people around. Funny people were always around in our life and everything like that. And it had poets and people that had to do with the arts. So it's good you ended up in the arts. You could have ended up being an accountant or something. But I don't think you were marked for that.
I was terrible at math. But
yeah, well, that would have not been good for accounting. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was pretty clear early on what I wanted to do, but not everyone is. I think different people come. I didn't realize I wanted to direct until much later, really.
Is it different trying to be an actor, let's say, like a kid, and a director? It's a different mindset?
Yeah, it is to some degree. I mean, I do both, but I think the director, I found myself as an actor often being very concerned about the whole picture, you know, everything that's happening rather than just my slice of it. And that's usually a director's mind who's curious about the overall process, product, every single point of view.
Yeah.
Because that's really what the director is doing. They're kind of the center of the wheel, and all the spokes come in through you, and you have to sort of make sure everybody's talking to each other and that all the ideas are unified. So I think I like being an actor, and when I'm an actor, it feels very luxurious. To just think about my character and what my part of the process is. When you're a director, you have much more responsibility, I think, and so it's fun, but it's also it's a different kind of energy that you need than for an actor.
It's less individualized, I guess, right? Because you're dealing with others in an overview.
Well, it's less cathartic. I remembered this because I got to act last couple years ago in a big project that we're developing, and I realized that after we would do the readings or the performances as the piece was being developed, I had a sense of catharsis. Like I got to actually perform the work in front of people and have that energy exchange.
Right.
And when I'm a director, I am living the process through actors' bodies vicariously.
Yeah.
So it's a different, I don't get that same release as you get when you're performing, but it's very vulnerable to be an actor, and you have to be incredibly open. And it's a heroic thing every time you get up on the stage. I really respect what actors do.
Yeah, I guess that's really true. Yeah, that's really.
Yeah, the good ones are it's they're not messing around. It's really vulnerable work.
How
And brave
how
work.
about we were talking with this fellow that we did it, the program that aired before we're taping this one, and there was an article. There's a thing called Playbill. It tells about the play and everything, and in there was a whole bunch of information about how important it is for the coming generation that there be at our places of education, particularly education at the university level, for theater. And of course, it's a magazine about theater, but they were talking in broad general terms, and that in general, humanity is going to have places for human beings to deal with things of the arts more than they have in the past, which has been overwhelmingly geared in the name of practicality to an immediate survival skill that can allow you to survive in a very, very difficult world. And that if this world is going to keep moving in a direction that it is, it's either going to blow itself up or it's going to usher in a period of liberation from the need to be concerned with the mundane things of being practical and earning a living above all else. So there's going to be no more spaces for the human concern for the arts, particularly at the university level. Is it happening across the country that the university theater programs, let's say you're particularly involved with that, is growing as it ought, and is it getting as much support as it ought, particularly in this idea? It's a little bit hard because it's a future tense. The realities of practicality still are very deeply imbued in the human consciousness. You've got to have food to eat and all these kind of things, and you're not going to get that by going off the yellow brick road. But is it being encouraged across the country? You must be in association with other members of the profession across the country. I think it ought to be widely supported at the university level for the young people coming along. I presume you would agree, but what is the reality there?
Depends what country you're in. If you're in the
No, I'm
United
talking about
States,
the United States first, but then
yeah,
across the world would be another matter.
I think that there is the theater is the thing that seems to never die. People declare it dead all the time, and then it keeps not dying because it adapts. And I think that the universities across the country are obviously changing, and there's all kinds of problematics with that. It's becoming more corporatized.
Yeah.
They're becoming more profit-driven.
You think
we
so?
know
Yeah,
about this.
right.
These are problems.
Yeah.
And even before that, there has been what we call the anti-theatrical prejudice. It's a kind of where the parents say, no, you can't major in theater because it's not practical.
You'll starve. You'll starve if you do it. In fact, you would have very often. Yeah.
And so that brings to mind, well, then what is the point of the college education?
What is the point of living? What is the point of life?
We're in the middle of a College of Liberal Arts, right?
Yeah.
That's where my department sits.
Mm-hmm.
And so we really encourage students to come to us, not because they can get a job out of it, although they will, but because it's going to give them insight into the human condition in a much wider and deeper way than almost any other major on campus.
And that might be the trend of human society. There's going to be more room for that kind of consciousness than there has been coming out of the past.
I don't know. I only know what there is now. I know that when apartheid fell, I love this story, and I can't remember the exact person that said this. It was a high up official in the new ANC government, right? When Mandela's party was voted in. They got calls from all over all the governments and all the world saying, you know, what can we bring you? Do you need money? Do you need doctors? Do you need teachers? What do you need? And someone high up said, we're going to need all of that, but the first thing we need is for you to send us your artists and your theater people.
That was Mandela. That was Mandela?
Yeah, his people. Someone in his government. I don't know if it was a direct quote from him, but it was someone high up.
He was one advanced human being, I'll tell you, yeah.
But their point was that because of the damage done by apartheid, before anything else could happen, they needed to learn to see each other as human beings again. They needed to learn to tell their stories. They needed to heal, and that the arts can heal in a way that money can't. And so they asked for theater artists and other artists to come over and help with the young people and with the reconciliation. And you know, that's pretty powerful. So I think the arts do have a part to play in that. I know that our students often come in as freshmen and they are kind of coming from a showbiz place. You know, they want to be a star or they want to do musicals.
Well,
which is all great.
There ought to be room in youthful consciousness for wanting to be a star. And let's put on a play out in the barn, Macaroni. You know, that kind of thing. I think that's where they
come in. And then by the end, though, they kind of have come to understand that maybe studying theater and how its place in society changes and the many ways that it can be used to talk about the human condition. This is more than just being a star or having a career or making it. So I think that's
become more mundane and part of the human condition. And what I'm trying to say is that it's almost imperative upon the evolving evolution of world society that there's going to be more and more opportunity for people to be concerned with the things that really matter rather than what they have to do in order not to be eliminated or persecuted. Apartheid was a particular experience against one people, but in a very large measure, that was the history of the world. It was always some people hitting others on the head and setting up something by force of arms, realpolitik, and all of that kind of thing with the kings in the castle and the peasants wallowing in the mud. I mean, it's been not at all, there wasn't the capability for there to be general affluence. There's a new book out, Abundance, that Mr. DeMontes have, but that we may be coming to a time when it will be possible for people not to have to be concerned with the mundane needs of the practical consideration and that consciousness and be concerned with the larger issues. And that ought to be encouraged not only but particularly in our universities, but also in our other levels of education for the future of the generations coming up, because it's allowing for that now in a way that history is a nightmare from which we're attempting to awaken, said James Joyce. We may be awakening to a time when we're going to be able to have a kind of condition where people can live the life of a liberated sense of life and to be concerned with the things that really matter than what they have to do, is what I guess I'm trying to get at. And universities could lead that. And I think it's wonderful for you to be in a position where you can be in that kind of a position to help people coming along.
Thank you.
Are you happy with what you're doing? Are you happy with what you're doing?
Yeah, I feel like I'm extremely lucky, and I find my students and my colleagues to be hugely inspirational thinkers about history and the human condition. And are you kidding? My students inspire me every year. They get smarter. And,
is that true? Those are just words. They're not true? Is that true?
No, they're true. They're really true. Yeah. I think that what's fun about working at the age level that I get to work with, which is, freshman to senior, it's like 18 to 22.
Yeah.
Is when they come in and they're still kind of adolescents. They're just leaving that kind of slightly protected, slightly narcissistic even bubble of those teen years, and they come in with a lot of knowledge that they think they already have. They're very sure.
Yeah.
because that's not what that age is about. It's
Yeah,
about
it seems to be. That's the way they've set it up. Yeah.
Asserting all the ways you already know everything.
Yeah.
And then for the 4 years that they're here, they're kind of learning all the things they don't know yet or that they're curious about, and they're opening all these new doors, and they all go in different directions, and they get double majors, or they get excited by geography or by science or by, and then they bring that back to their theater work. And by the time they leave, they're these really curious thinkers, and really, I'm really proud because when I mingle with other professors in other departments on campus, like physics or, math or any of the other departments, they always comment, they always say that they're very happy when they have a theater major in their class, because the theater majors ask the best questions, and they're the ones that are like hand in the air all the time, and they're really good at communicating what they think. So I think there's something about the study of theater that just makes you a 360-degree experiencer of life, and you get curious kind of about all of it, And so by the time they leave, I'm always just amazed. They're like these adults with really hungry brains, and then they're going off and making theater or making art, or some of them end up making music or working with children or educating, or they go in lots of different directions. Some go into politics, but I have one going to law school. I have one, who's a physicist. So they go in different directions, but they retain this, I don't know, this wonderfully rich curiosity. And they challenge me, and they challenge what they're learning, and that keeps me constantly thinking forward. So I'm very grateful that I get to be a teacher. I feel like a student a lot of the time.
I wonder, I don't mean to be, I'm wondering that person in mathematics or physics who is really happy to have a theater person in their class like that. Are you ever in a position where, and it enhances the teaching of mathematics or whatever they're involved with, they become better students and everything? Now, but the question I have for you, do you ever find that the people who are deeply ensconced in quantum mechanics or mathematical equations inspirational to the people within your class, so that it works both ways, or is it a one-way thing to just pleasure and having fun that the theater is, rather than the hard work of that a lot of our moral lesson teachers have taught us over the lesson? It's just you're just having fun.
I think the theater, at least in our department,
against the Puritan ethic, Yeah, the
theater students are probably among the busiest and most hardworking on campus.
Is that true, right? Well, it's just fun.
They're in classes all day, so they're training in all the liberal arts and plus the sciences and all that. They have to do their general education, so they're off doing all that.
How does that?
And they're in
go ahead.
And they're in their theater classes all day, and then most of them are involved in some kind of deeper research or performance rehearsal work every night until 11. So
wait a minute, they're there in theater, and then they're learning all about history and politics and economics and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Also, so theater's just a little fluff on top, or is the theater the main thing?
No.
Do they specialize in theater so they don't have to be concerned with all these other things? Like if you're specialized in politics, you can be very ignorant about other kinds of things. If you're specializing in theater, does that mean you don't have to be interested in the world or anything like that in real terms? I'm being deliberately difficult with my question.
I think there's different kinds of training in theater. So, for example, in our department, we do have some very specialized tracks. One is a Bachelor of Fine Arts, a B.F.A.
Yeah.
That's in acting, and those are that's more of a conservatory approach. They're really focused on being professional actors. And then the BA performance program that I'm part of leading is inside of the College of Liberal Arts. So the students their central major is theater, but their studies are broad. Their studies they have to take histories and physics and philosophy and all that.
I think that's more, I think that would be the more interesting place to be, with all due respect.
The BFA students also, actually, for a BFA in acting, it is pretty also connected to the university at large. So they do have a certain number of general education requirements that they take. But for my money, I agree. I did a BA when I was a student, and I loved having all those other inputs.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if we got a little glitch again. Maybe it'll come back. I don't know. Hello, hello, hello. I'm talking to myself. And we've got a technical problem, and maybe it'll kick in. It's going to kick it in here. We'll try. Let's see if we can pick it up again. We'll do the Skype. They're having some difficulty with the Skype out in Minneapolis, as I understand. So I'll talk to it and everything. Isn't she lovely, though? I'm prejudiced, though. She's my daughter, Lisa, and she's out there in Minneapolis at a university, the University of Minnesota, in Minneapolis. And I understand Minneapolis is a happening town. If anybody could come here to the room and tell me whether or not we got a chance to get going again, or tell me what the situation is. I'm partial to talking to her, and she's just about to be going back to England on a visit now and everything. And apparently things are going well. Could somebody please come here and let me know what is the situation? Hello, Lisa. Hello, where have you gone? And there's no one here telling me anything. So, what's this?
She's offline.
It's all over?
Offline. She's offline.
What does that mean? Are we all through?
She got cut off. That's what he means.
She what?
She got cut off.
Yeah, is she back on now? There's a phone. What's that now going on? She got cut off, and there's now some signal going that maybe she'll be back on. She's very what do you call it? Clever at being able to get things going. And it looks to me like she may be coming back. She's arisen. She has arisen! Yay!
I don't know what happened,
knew
but
you
something
wouldn't
got
be.
knocked out. Now I'm back.
I knew there wouldn't. A little thing like getting cut off by some cyber glitch would stop you. That's the way. That's the least I've always known would be there. So we had a little trouble with the computer over at your end, I guess, huh?
I don't know. I guess so. The internet here is sometimes sketchy, so
Yeah.
we'll do our best.
Yeah.
Anyway, just to finish the thought, I think that's what makes working at a university, it's challenging because there's a lot of bureaucracy. It's a huge system. It's slow, and the money is a problem and all that stuff. But on the other end of it, you're with a group of humans who for 4 years are just there to think and learn and challenge ideas.
Yeah.
And make art. And so in a way, it's like a beautiful, I think it's a beautiful thing to witness and be part of. And then a lot of my students go on to become my own artistic collaborators with my theater company or with other things.
Yeah,
so
you have continuing relationships with them from 20 years ago. Yeah.
I do. And I feel so
I still have
fortunate.
friends from when I was a professor. Yeah, from way back.
Right.
Yeah.
You know how it is.
Yeah.
I think that the learning goes both ways, and I feel really fortunate. Yeah, it's just great. And I mean, the young people always are living a time that I'm not living. You know, I came of age in the 80s and the 90s, and they're coming of age now. And I think they understand what's going on the ground in a different way than I do. So they help keep me informed. And we don't always agree and have the same point of view, but it's exciting to have that energy around me all the time. Plus, I have to say, my colleagues also. I mean, I have adult colleagues that I work with who are they're so freaking smart.
Is that within your department or across the board? You're associating in a university with all kinds of colleagues in all the disciplines. What a wonderful place to be, huh?
I know.
Actually, you can have outreach to them. I've had people talk about that. Friends who are, and the internet and the wiki and all this kind of thing, you can have access. Not only that, when I was young in Ohio Street in Detroit, and that was before there was any of these fancy things going on, we used to be pretty well middle class. We used to have Encyclopedia Britannica, and we had the Harvard Classics.
Right.
And then there was a few other books and everything. But there was nothing like what you have now. You've got access to the best minds in the world.
Exactly.
And you can have access to that as a citizen without being necessarily in a program that has certain kinds of things that you do, like you would have at a university.
Yeah,
So,
it's kind of democratized information. It's my children, my two boys, when they want to learn something like, for a while, one of my sons was learning magic tricks.
yeah,
And
I
so
know, yeah.
he found this incredible teacher on a YouTube channel online, this
yeah.
like really exceptional magic teacher
Yeah.
who was posting these videos on certain magic tricks and explaining it step by step. And Daniel had access to this incredible teacher, you know, just
Yeah.
for free on the internet. And I thought this is the great use of the internet.
It's not.
Same
It's absolutely true. I was just
Yeah.
doing. You know Steve. You don't know Steve that well. Steve Neskis. You know Steve. I guess maybe more recent. But he's been involved with me. We had a program we aired today in New York City. They had not only coming to the end of the election season in all the country, but they had a a major gathering of intellectuals here in New York City downtown at the Conrad Hotel. And it was all along the lines of the Ray Kurzweil and what's his name? Peter Diamandis. They formed the Singularity University. People who are interested in all the implications of the exponential increasing capability of the information technology, which is informing everything. Everything is being changed by an exponential increasing of information technology, and they have a branch of what the implications are, and they formed this that major entrepreneurially minded people, and they have a thing going. It's called exponential financial. They got exponential other things, but the implications of it, and they're considering this at the highest level. And we're talking about the way they think. They got books, you can read books and so forth. But now you can just go and you can be learning from the best minds that is available to everybody if you're wanting to be interested in something.
It's incredible, and it's changing the classroom. It's really exciting.
Is it really? Is it changing the?
For me, it's changing it hugely, because it used to be that I had to deliver all the content, and now
as a teacher, you mean? As a teacher?
As a teacher, right?
Yeah.
So it was a very kind of hierarchical model where I knew things and I.
Looks like we may be destined not to have this thing work so well because the technological is not working so well from the other end of the blah, 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 blah. Yeah, one more time we can try it. And there are lessons to be learned in terms of I was just talking about the technological exponential increasing capability of the internet and all that and everything. And we have a cyber problem. They ought to get those things ironed out. They're getting to have such a capability now. They ought to be able to get those things ironed out. And it is a major thing that you got such the educational process is changing. I think it's making possible systems thinking where people don't have to be specialized in something in order to get some skill set that they can use in order to commandeer money. I think so that they can get money from what it is they know how to do. Education has been going that way. Now there's coming up again.
Sorry.
It's getting to know you, getting to know the television without you, getting to wish you could be here steady, my dear.
It really works without a hitch.
I was just talking about how wonderful the exponential increasing capability of television is.
Right,
when it cut out.
In and out of a signal. This building was built, in the 60s or 70s, and the internet capability inside of it, we are still honing that because the internet is a new phenomenon, and universities work slow to catch up. So I'm sorry that I keep dropping out.
No, that's all right. There's lessons in that. What is the lesson? Are the dropouts as often happening in the information technology department of the physics department as they are in the theater department, where you have all these people who are interested in acting out the latest thing, and they're follow the yellow brick road mentality, and they don't care about any of these practical realities? God bless them all, but you understand what I'm saying.
Or the resources don't necessarily go to the arts, right? So ours is the last building renovated, that kind of stuff.
Is it still that way? The arts are the last thing is there, and everything goes to the
well, to a degree,
goes to
we
military
live in a
research.
capitalist society, so there's an interest in what makes money. Theater isn't as concerned with money, so we're concerned with.
Yeah, but you see, not to be concerned with money was the height of irresponsibility in the minds of so many. I mean, just generations, just a couple from you. That was the major thing that you were on the earth, was to make sure you didn't starve and the kiddies didn't starve. That's how bad and desperate it was,
well,
and
it's
still
that
is
way
for a lot of people.
I don't think that's not the case. I think that you have to value what you value, and there are different ways of talking about profit and loss. And I don't pretend to understand it too much about that. All I know is that in America right now, very few people actually go to the theater or even know what the theater is. It's a small minority. We're not a theater literate culture the way that some other places are. Like, I've been in Russia, I've spent time there, I've spent time in other countries.
Tell me about that. Is it that serious a thing in Russia? They really take it serious. Stanislavski and Myrhold. You studied Myrhold or somebody?
So Russia's going through a transition now, which means it's changing. But Russia has an incredibly rich theater history. And incredibly prominent, especially in the 19th and 20th centuries, right? So they are the giants, Stanislavski and Meyerhold and all these other guys that came out of there. And I think when I spent time in Russia and going to theaters there, what always struck me was how the whole populace seemed to know about the theater and care about it and want to know who was directing and what was the play and what was happening. And same in Ireland, I have to say. I did spend some time there working on a project back in the 90s, and the same thing. I felt like every bed and breakfast we stayed in, every housewife and everybody that I met knew about what was happening in the theaters.
They had a thing on television the other day judging the countries of the world, not in terms of just necessarily GDP or anything like that, but in the goodness of the way in which they're set up, the goodness thing. And the number one was Ireland. Ireland was the best country in the world by the standards of the values that really matter, like love and things like that. And it was a serious sounding survey.
Yes, that may be true. I know that there's lots of different ways to measure success, national happiness and all that. But anyway, no, America, most kids in a lot of parts of America, they go to football more than they go to see a theater play. So I'm aware that it's a small percentage.
Yeah, but is it growing? What I'm trying to say is it growing? In football, I don't know. I'm just trying to reach for something. I'm so proud of you, my darling, that you've been able to get into something that wouldn't it be wonderful if everybody could be as genuinely pleased and happy with what they're doing? Let's say that you are. Times come and grow, and they sometimes are better than others. But it would be wonderful. Everybody could be really happy at what they do.
Well, you always love what you do, Daddy.
Oh, I know.
I know but I'm saying people that love what they do.
But I still think a lot of people, and on the world scale, there's so many that are just like quarry slaves, practically.
Well, they're asleep. There's a lot of people that are asleep, and probably.
That's individual, but it's also the conditions, the sociological, political, economic, organizational assumptions they're forced to be born into and live with make them only able to be concerned with those mundane things about getting something to eat. Now, that's been something that's been part of the human condition, but we may be coming to a time where there's enough for all, and then it will be a promise that you don't have to be concerned first and foremost with practical and money in order to have a big change. And that might be the big change that's coming to the world society. That might be the biggest change of all, that there's actually a time when you're not going to have to be, as is the case now, everything is subsumed under the rubric of money. Practically in the whole wide world now, and maybe we're getting to the point where that's being challenged on a major scale, and it's going to be challenged in a way appropriate to the evolutionary development of consciousness and universe. Is likely not to come from the you know, from the business schools or something like it. It's likely to come from the theater departments
Well,
and the
nice
people
to hear
who believe.
it's nice to hear
and
you
the
saying
poets.
that, and we'll see if that's true. That's not. I don't know how to predict that. I know you've been talking about that for many years.
For for almost my whole adult life, yeah.
Almost your whole every second I've known you, you've talked about it. I know that. But the bottom line for me is just human communication, human interaction, and I find that I understand the universal through the specific. So
you do,
me,
yeah. I rather more get to the specific through the universal.
Yeah, so
I like to think systems and see things not. I think the university is getting very, very highly specialized in their training, and universities are getting a great deal of the national product now, and it's growing madly. We got a university system here, CUNY, 500,000 students. In an urban university, and they're being supported very mightily, and it's usually creating great specialization in some field that is the mark of what you're there for, is to get very highly specialized, because then you have more value to the society. And I think that's what they're looking for, really, or ought to be, is systems thinking, where you're thinking about the whole rather than being specialized. But it's going the opposite way, I'm afraid. I don't know.
Well, for me, the studying of a very specific field, like the theater arts, for example, by going very deeply into that study and understanding its full history and its full implications, and then even more specifically into just what it means to be a director and how to shape that, has given me access to systems thinking, like you're talking about.
You do,
in a
really?
Way that
Yeah. Okay.
If I kept everything very surface and knew a little bit about everything, I don't think I would have had as deep an understanding.
Well, that would be
For me,
the argument.
It's easier to
go
deeply into the specific, and then by that finding all the larger connections. And I think so. It depends how you were. Every
That's
unit
right.
is different.
That's right. And the leading indicator of the direction things have been going and would be wanting to go and would be projected politically and economically and everything else will be toward more and more specialization. And you become more and more specialized, quick thing, and you become not leading to the doors of being connected with things comprehensively, but specialized. It could be a divide and conquer strategy that the system is engaged in, and it might be that large question that the arts and other kinds of subversive people to that direction are coming out of the systems thinking, it would seem to me. Anyway, listen, one thing, I'm not sure if it would work. We had a little technical trouble. We had a clip.
Oh, yeah.
A piece that you all put together, apparently, with Bertolt Brecht. Do we know how to bring that up? Do we know how to bring that clip up? Hello? Hello?
Do you want me to set it up a little and say what it is?
Yeah, set it up and then see if they can bring it up. Okay.
So this is a play that my theater company created 2 years ago. And
here we go. Let it go. Bring it up full screen if you can.
Good typing paper. Scissors for cutting out images. Adhesives for mounting.
Helena Weigel, German actress, Bertolt Brecht's wife and business partner, stays on stage to address the audience. She speaks with a German accent.
Would destroy my creativity, you know that. Me, so far away, thinking of you straying, would destroy everything I ever built. Like war destroys cities. But then again, I suppose, not unlike war, love finds its way. Tonight, the light of love is in your eyes. What will you is loose, our lives
Begin.
No, much harder, much tougher, not so light.
No, it's not light.
What do you feel when a great man lets you down? It's as if your own father turns out not to be the strong and take-charge man you thought he was. No, instead, he's bourgeois, a weakling. One thing I would suggest to you, PB, the manuscript should be inside the globe.
The globe?
Yeah, it's a great symbol, isn't it?
But is it too much? No, he keeps it in his jacket, right? They don't have to, they know they let him do as he pleases. So, you've been asked by scientists in Hollywood to visit Galileo. You're doing it for them, but you don't want to.
You think this is Galileo? I once would have died for this idea he would not die for, but now, look at him. He's a shriveled up speck.
Yeah, it's like looking into a mirror, isn't it? But there's terrible distortion, right? You don't like what you see.
Okay.
It's a poet. If they write a play with music, it's very successful. She contributes a few things here and there, which makes it feel more important than she actually is. So he kicks her out. Goes tired of her. He ends up alone. The poet puts his name on the manuscript, because if he didn't actually write every word, he owns every word, because without him, none of those words would exist. He thinks, why did this happen? But she never blames herself. The coward blames the men. It's all their fault. They're all against her. Would have been somebody. It wasn't for all these.
That's really good. I like that. But we do need to change a few of the words. Instead of saying she wanted her name on the marquee, why don't we say she wanted her name on the title page? And instead of saying she contributed here and there, why don't we say she wrote 80% of it? And let's say she actually gets paid. Now, back to Galileo. I think that we should put a cigar in his mouth so everyone knows his breath really stinks. And give him a monologue about what it's like to have a ridiculously small penis.
Okay, that's okay. I couldn't hear it very well here at this end and everything. Just tell us what it was quick. We only got a couple minutes left or so. But
that was a play called Rehearsing Failure, and
Yeah.
it is about the German director and playwright Bertolt Brecht.
right.
And the year that he lived in America, which was 1947, he was in exile, and that is also the year that he testified before the HUAC committee.
Oh,
McCarthy.
wow. I see.
And it is about his relationship with 3 of his collaborators, all women, all his lovers.
Uh-huh.
He has he worked with a lot of very smart women,
Yeah.
and didn't always give them credit or money, but took a lot of their ideas. And so this is kind of about that collective that he worked with,
I see.
and the intricacies of it. And his younger self is in there as well, who he wrestles with.
Yeah, Bertolt Brecht was bigger than life and everything. He worked with people that took advantage of him. It sounds to me that's happened a lot in the history of art, I'm proud to say. Listen, sweetheart, it's so good to talk to you. And I'm so glad you got that set up there in Minnesota so very well. And Minnesota and Minneapolis are very happy very fortunate to have you there on their staff. And I'm glad that it's working out so well. So thank you for participating in this effort and trying to understand the implications of theater in education and in the general human condition. And thank you for being such a leading such a very, very well-led life, my dearly darling daughter, Lisa, in Minneapolis. Okay, thank you very much in the audience for viewing. Have a good trip, Lisa. I know you got some work to do, and thank you for viewing. We'll be coming back again tomorrow. Thank you, and good night, and we'll be coming back tomorrow. Thank you. Okay, boy, that was a little tricky.